looking at some of these other options for loading. So we've gone through all of the options for mast tabs, point force, pressure, and balance. And we'll start adding some of these other ones to take a look at what options we have. And we can add an additional acceleration to the model. And you can see when you check the box, you get the acceleration tab here. And the options for what get entered in this area are the acceleration reference point for what's going to be our center of rotation for that acceleration. And we have predefined options for either the center of flotation or the center of gravity, but you can also switch to a user-defined option if you want and specify any point. When we define the acceleration values, we have the option of entering those in the ship coordinate system or the world coordinate system, depending on what data you might be trying to match. Now you can see right now we have a few values grayed out, and that's mainly because we have a symmetric model here. If we were to come into the information tab and remove that transverse symmetry, then you can see we can enter all 6 values if we want. So later on, when we go to actually start running the analysis, in addition to running the hydrostatic balance, we'll also run inertia relief. And since the model will be in hydrostatic balance, there's still going to be, I guess, well, a tolerance for when it does that balance. And also there's no restoring force for like sway, surge, or yaw. So we'll use the inertial relief to make up for any very small remaining differences that need to be balanced out. And this is where that'll get automatically applied. And we can come into this dialog and check the values to make sure they are small accelerations that are being applied. Another option in here is the end moment, but as you can see, it's grayed out, and that's mainly because we can turn symmetry back on, but convert this to a cut model now. And this would be just we were modeling one bulkhead bay, section of the midship that we wanted to evaluate and not bother modeling the entire hull. When we come back into the loads, now you can see we have the end moment available to us. And then when we come into this dialog, we simply specify what loads we want applied at the reference end and the opposite end, with these 5 loads being our options. The next one is the corrosion, which brings up the corrosion tab here. Now we'll be going over corrosion separately, so we'll hold off on this, but basically it allows you to add corrosion groups in here, and then we can specify the actual corrosion in there. The next one is user-defined CG. Now this is actually a legacy option. This was used for the legacy version of Maestro. And in the current implementation of Maestro, and with this solver, it allows you to define the CG here as well as the inertias, but it's not actually used for anything. If we were to define a CG here and say we moved it back, actually, I think if we do a hydrostatic balance, it'll enter the current CG there. Yeah, 82. So if we move this back to 102, so a full 20 meters, and we modify our model, if we rerun the hydrostatic balance on this condition, you would expect quite a bit of trim. But as you can see, we're still floating at an even keel. It's because it doesn't update the CG in this solver, but where it is used is under the additional accelerations. If we have an additional acceleration and you click the center of gravity, it would actually use that redefined center of gravity from this user-defined CG. If you use that option, it's very similar to if you had just said user-defined and you put your user-defined CG here. And that's probably what's going to happen. If there's no need for it in that legacy version in the current Maestro, that's probably going to get removed shortly. So that won't even be there. And if it is there, I think we're going to modify how it's presented so that it's clear that this is a legacy option.